Rock and roll.
Rock and roll. Okay, my name's Jean-Luc Lawrence, and I've been working in the South African film industry for about 25 years. I started at film school, like a lot of you probably have or are, and while I was at film school, I used to bunk film school and go and work on movies as like a trainee and stuff. So by the time I'd finished film school, I had already completed 3 feature films. And by doing that, I kind of found that the department that I kind of gelled with the most was the AD department. And I think the reason for that was I had aspirations of directing and writing and doing all those creative things, but I didn't know how to get there exactly. And I think there are many routes to go that way. And at the time, I thought ADing was going to be the best way to do it. I found out subsequently it's probably not, because if you become a good AD, they kind of want to keep you in that role, because it is quite a difficult kind of HOD position to run. But the reason I liked it so much is that I was able to kind of get my nose into everybody else's business, and that was something that I really liked. I wanted to kind of know everything about lighting and grips and art department and editing and the CGI side of things and construction and all the different things. And I found that ADing was the one kind of department where I was kind of allowed to get in there and ask questions and be part of it. And I kind of grew from there. So when I finished film school, I then kind of got jobs as a PA and slowly worked my way up. And yeah, after a number of years, I worked my way up to seconding, and then eventually up to first ADing, which is what I do now. And I really love this career. It's an amazing place to be. But the one sense I want to try and get from you guys is, do you really understand what ADing is? Because it's a bit of a confusing title, because it sounds like you're assisting the director. But I heard a really interesting story once that the reason they called us assistant directors is actually to trick the directors. And the way it came about was back in the day when films were being made by the people who paid for them. So basically you had, this is like back in the 1920s and really early days of filmmaking. You would have a guy with a camera and he would make his movie, and then he would show it in a theater and he would make money. And that's kind of developed from there. And what I understand is, as these guys became more successful, they would then start hiring directors to make the movies for them, and then they would put up the money. But then the problem with that became that directors want to be creative and they want to take the time they need to make what they got to do. And the guys putting up the money weren't getting their movies on time, or things were taking too long and things were costing too much. So they had to figure out a way of how do they get this show to run more smoothly. So what they ended up doing is, instead of getting into a fight with the director, they invented this role, which was the assistant director, which was essentially somebody who could come and kind of streamline the way the movie was being shot, and also be the left-hand person or the right-hand guy for the director, making sure he's got all the things that he needs in place, so he's not running around trying to find actors and trying to find this and that and the other. And there was kind of this role born where the assistant director could, how best to describe it, he can kind of run things, but then also be a conduit between the money people and the creative people, and kind of allow for that politics to have a sponge, so to speak, so that there wasn't a direct conflict between the people paying for things and the people trying to be creative. And I think essentially that's what it's developed into in a pure sense, but now it's become a far more complex thing, where we have to kind of break down entire scripts, have a lot of meetings in pre-production, figuring out exactly what this movie is going to be and how we're going to make it, and what kind of resources we have and how much time we have, and all that kind of other stuff that comes into making a film. And I can remember in film school, one of the mystical things for me was, how does an AD know how much time to allow to shoot for something? And what I've actually discovered years and years later is that the ADs don't decide that. They get told, you've got 22 days to shoot this movie, make it work. And that's essentially what we do, is we take the time that's allowed for us and the money that's there, and then we do a lot of kind of working out, where do we spend more time to get the best production value? Also, where do we from what the director's trying to get out of the show? Where do we allow him more time, and where do we kind of cut corners and shoot things fast and not care so much about the amount of time we spend on certain things? So it's finding that balance. So yeah, I mean, that's from my side, that's kind of the crux and the underlying thing of being an AD. But naturally, running a department like that, it's a department that not only runs the film set, and we have our own department that we're running all the people within the department, we also affect every other department on the set, because we dictate sometimes, or we negotiate with other departments how much time they've got to light a scene, how much time they've got to build this, do the set dressing if we're doing a set change, or things like that. And all that, hopefully, you can work out in pre-production so that everybody's on the same page, the team can work well together, and it's well communicated, and the shoot goes smoothly. So I would say the #1 job for ADs nowadays is communicating.
Right, all right. Hi everyone. My name is Sivenkosi Khuneli, and I am an AD for the past 9 years. This is my 9th year. I met Jean-Luc a few years ago actually, and I learned quite a few bits. We were just talking on the phone call last night about how you informed me about the donut effect. So the structure of a film set on its own, just to understand the outskirts, the middle of the donut, and the center of the donut. I think it really echoes with what you are saying right now in understanding the positioning of an assistant director. So I came up from film school as well, film background, Big Fish, those of you who knows, Big Fish School of Digital Filmmaking. I struggled to get into the film industry after graduating the course, and then I found Film Academy, and I went ahead and enrolled myself, and this is how I got into getting into the AD department as an AD trainee for my very first job. It's actually a very, very funny story that I normally talk about in different platforms, those who we follow each other on social media. My very first job I got while I was doing something completely different, just to make an income to survive and live in Cape Town as a kid from Gqeberha, Eastern Cape. And what had happened was I got a call to enroll to get into the AD department, and I left my job that I was doing at the time 5 minutes before that shift ended, because this was my big break. I was finally getting into being the filmmaker that I want to be, right? I didn't know at the time that it would be the assistant director department. I don't think I had an idea of what that whole department has to do with. I heard the name director is what was standing out for me. I was like, I'm going with the directors, absolutely. You know what I mean? The sooner I can meet a director and get to see what a director do and think like and navigate themselves, the better. I do think that that perspective was different to what I then ended up experiencing, as Jean-Luc says, that it has everything to do with what the director does not want to deal with. Yeah, so getting into the industry was quite overwhelming, because it was nothing that I had in mind or what that they taught us in film school. And understanding the assistant director department was a roller coaster rather. So as an AD trainee, you come in, you most probably with the big boys. It's a very boily department. 9 years ago, I walked in to work with man. Yes, yeah. It is changing. I think times are changing. Our industry is changing. I'm here sitting with Jean-Luc, who was my HOD just a while ago, right? And here we are having a conversation with fresh young minds who are coming into this brilliant, amazing career path. We are here not to convince anyone to join the assistant director department.
Don't do it.
It has to be something that you find within yourself. I guess that's why I'm going to share a bit of myself here with you and say the roller coaster of coming in the AD department from a tiny little kid into a fast-paced moving industry that had extras. I remember from my very first experience encountering extras. So let's get right into it.
I think it might be really helpful if we can run through what a day is like for an assistant director and what happens.
Yeah.
It would be great to get some kind of feedback from everyone watching. What do they understand an assistant director to be?
Right.
We're not too sure if we kind of just regurgitating stuff that you know already, or whether we're going to give
Yeah, I think it will also help the terminology that we'll use. We'll be able to break it down a bit more.
What I find really interesting about the role of First AD, and you touched on this, Jean-Luc, and that is that was a very general and kind of discursive description of what a First AD does. But I know from experience in the film industry for 40 years that a bad First AD is the worst possible thing you can have on any production, no matter how big or small it might be. Okay, I really think that the First AD is one of the most critical roles in the industry, and I'm trying to blow you guys up and say, oh, well, you blah, 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 blah. But there's no question in my mind that a First AD is a pivot, is a hinge, is a kind of a ball joint in a production. Isn't it?
I'm going to echo what you're saying, and I'm going to explain why I agree to a degree. and that is essentially when we're running the set and we're shooting, the voice that you hear all day long is the AD. So the AD is letting you know what's happening next. He's letting you know when we're rolling, when we've cut, what's going on. So you can have an AD, and I'm not going to point fingers or whatever, but obviously I've on my way coming up, I've experienced the good and the bad. And you can get ADs that lose their temper and lose their cool and lose their ability to communicate clearly and to encourage, and they're rather being negative and they're shouting and that defines the entire tone on the set, because like it or not, everybody's working under the system. You have to listen to this leader who's leading us every step of the way. And when I say every step of the way, it's literally every time the camera rolls, you're hearing the AD's voice, and he's making that happen. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it can get really bad where the director may even take away those AD privileges and get the AD to step aside, but that's very rare, because to work your way up to the position of being a First AD, you hopefully have gotten there by years of experience and years of learning how to communicate well with people. And I think it's quite important, I think Siva, you would probably agree with this, is that the type of person you need to be is you need to be outgoing, you need to be someone who can listen well, but also someone who can communicate clearly, and somebody who has a degree of authority that people will believe what you're saying, and they're not going to be questioning it, because obviously you don't want to be explaining yourself every step of the way. You need the crew to trust that you know what you're talking about, and that things are going to move forward if we move in a certain direction, or if we decide things in a certain way. So yeah.
I do want to help in and touch on the bad AD, First AD perspective of things. Now, the shouting and all that is not the only thing. What I've learned is not the only thing that will give you the sense of this person's a bad AD. What happens is that, which is what is kind of like difficult right now for people that are coming into the game, recently dealing with an AD trainee. I'm like, girl, when I was an AD trainee, trust me, we were spinning. This is a business that has a huge sense of urgency. Outside your personality being, I think personality, I'm a small town girl, and finding my voice in the big town in a vocalized, authoritative department took years of work to actually just come out and be saying, now I'm coming into the AD team, whether it is from a permanent perspective, because we have people come on board on prep, but you also have daily. So whichever show I can go into now, I know that I have the sense of confidence and the voice that I had built over the years.
Let me put it this way. I can hire Suvet tomorrow, and we might, let's say we have an AD team, a small AD team of 4 or 5 people, and maybe we've got a big extras day where we've got 1,000 extras coming. I can hire Suvet in and know that she'll be able to direct those 1,000 people. She'll be able to bring them in, let them know what's happening, get them ready, and get them to come to set, so that my other ADs can continue doing what they normally do on a day-to-day basis.
So I think
there's a certain amount of confidence that goes with that.
That goes with that, and attentiveness, because remember, you're coming in this scenario as a person who did not get a script or was not part of the prepping process of the whole shoot, but you're coming in as an AD. understanding the effectiveness of an AD. It means that the little side that you get in the morning or in the evening, you would have read it to understand what the scene looks like that you will be dealing with. Your equipment is the extras, right? That's what makes you confident to get into that. But I want to make the point of understanding our first ADs, the voice of God that's happening in our earpieces. We're on the outskirts processing the extras. We're on the outskirts trying to get them an action, positioning them on the film set itself and understanding what's happening at this point. I think one of the things that helped me in my journey was that reading the room. It helped me in my personal life as well. As an AD, you've got to read the sense of the type of where we're at in terms of the day. You will understand then why your first AD may feel furious at that moment in time, why there's a little bit more pressure because there's a day to be made here, and maybe there was a delay which you know about or you don't know about, but it's your job, even at the foundation of the junior level of the assistant directing department, to actually get a sense of what is happening at that moment in time. That will help you have a sense of urgency and pace within your duty that you're required to execute, whether it is at a junior level or a hierarchy level, being the person first AD or the second on the floor, who's the right hand to the first AD. Either way, you have to just be consistently attentive with what the day looks like. We can prep in the film industry as much as we can. We're prepping for things we don't even know how they will change, because weather affects it. And I think John-Luc can give us more intel. I'm so excited to get into what are the most glitches that you've experienced in your career life that now allows you to think on your feet and change and reverse a schedule that you have put together from the foundation phases. So maybe we can talk about the script and how that script translate into a shooting schedule. We have John-Luc in the house, year 2024, and yeah, that's what I think we take it from there.
Okay, so you wanted to talk more about scripts and breaking down and all that kind of stuff.
I think we've got a question over there first.
Yes.
Hi guys, I'm Lorna. I was introduced to the Film Academy by a friend. I wasn't in film school. I was working in a contact center, but through the Film Academy I got interested into AD. I always imagine that nothing is simple or you don't necessarily succeed at the first go. So I'd like to know from you guys, when was the first time you thought, okay, this was a failure on my behalf, and how did you deal with not only learning from it but not beating yourself about it? And do you apply certain things now based on that mistake? Like the biggest one where you feel like I messed up.
I have a very silly response to you. Biggest failure. Yeah, I think
it's a difficult question.
Yeah, I don't have much of a deeper explanation. Just one scenario pops up in my head. So, junior level, I come in and I know I'm working on this film. Here's what I did. I searched up the director. I did the whole thing the night before. Run my head, run the race, search. Oh, it's this guy. Oh my gosh, you know. I won't mention any names on this platform. We do obviously sign NDAs and all that to not share too much detail of the experience of the film itself. But I was fascinated. I think I had a little bit of start on my track. What do you call it? Starstruck moment. Yes. That I'm going to wake up and tomorrow morning I'm basically going to be in the same vicinity with this human being who's this world-known director. And so for the first half of that day on set, I did not see the director. I could only just hear the people on the comms, the first AD. Me being in the outskirts, things like lock-offs and things like getting coffees and all those stuff. Are you in the outskirts? It was only until this one moment where I get a call that I need to make coffees for the director and the executive producers, which meant that that is my opportunity to go in closer and actually meet the director I was searching all night long about in real time. My focus completely switched off from what I was listening to on Channel 1 as to what's happening on the floor. All I cared about was getting this coffee from the craft to deliver it to the director myself. I don't know how, John-Luc, I've squeezed through past a lock-off, the greatest of lock-offs of all time, where we're shooting in a tunnel, and what we're shooting is a steady cam, it's a chase scene. The actors are running down a tunnel. I promise you now, I don't know how I squeezed past a lockup or why there was no lockup there, management. I walked right into frame. As I turned the corner with the coffee, the actors were coming at me. They were running towards my direction. I have this coffees in my hands, the executive producer, I've got the director's coffee in my hand. Here comes the actors, you know, the leads of the day. And I fall over and the coffee just spilled over my chest, and all I can hear is the first AD in my ear go, all right, cut, who was that? That's the AD training. Medic, let's get a medic up in here. That's all me. I'm like, okay, cool. This is the death of me. All right, so...
Or you could take it as if Renelia gets given a task, she's going to do it no matter what.
You know, there's lots that comes out of that story. When I think about it, it's such an hilarious story because I'm the AD trainee whom the ADs called the medic on the floor while we were rolling, and they called it cut because of me. But what I'd learned from that situation is that firstly, I didn't know about lockoffs and understanding the importance of a lockoff and the dangers of what could have happened in that situation. That is the biggest greatest of mess up, because if you are in frame and you're a film crew and you're an AD, it's pretty much go home time. It's the same thing, it's equivalent to you having your cell phone on as an AD as opposed to when your phone rings on the film set. It's a small advocacy that comes with being within the AD department that is so crucial. And it's then I realized how important a lockup is. And I think standing now in the position of being able to set up lockups, I'm so attentive to these things because the moment we have a frame, I'm able to go see the frame and be of note that, all right, there needs to be a foot soldier at that corner to make sure that no one walks into frame. And it's fine beyond. I hope this answers your question somewhere or other.
No, mine's very different. I think I'll tell you the story of what happened. So I was ADing a show, and we had an incident. We were shooting in the middle of Khayelitsha, and we had set up a massive big set piece. We had about 250 extras. We had some people on the back of a donkey cart. I'm not going to give too many specifics because it might give away what the show itself was. But essentially the director blew up at the art department because things were not going the way he expected. And he said that X and Y and Z was supposed to happen. And the art department turned around and went, we had no idea that this is what you wanted. And I backed them up. I basically turned around to the director and said, listen, no one has ever said any of that to us. What you're asking for now is something we have no knowledge of. And he fired me at that moment. He just basically said, get off my set. So I think what I learned from that, I mean, what was interesting, I got fired, but the producer said, no, you have to stay and you have to keep like fostering the job and making sure that everything runs okay, because they kind of could see that what had happened was a kind of director moment, which happens when things are under pressure and there's a lot of excitement and there's a lot of people involved in that. Directors can often kind of lose their cool and become tyrannical in a way. But what I learned as an AD there is, as much as I wanted to stand by the art department and protect them from the rage, as an AD, my job was not necessarily to do that at that time. And I needed to figure out another way of kind of calming the situation and getting us to carry on shooting rather than getting combative. So it was a big learning curve for me. And they say you haven't worked in the film industry until you've been fired. So that was my one opportunity of being fired. But I learned a lot from it. It changed my temperament as an AD on set. It taught me that being combative in any situation never works. And rather you need to kind of assess what's going on, take some time, and then try and figure it out later if you can.
Hi there, my name is Alex Orense. Just wanted to kind of touch on what you said about that situation in which you got fired. Because I've been on like a very small shoot, and where one of the the older makeup artist got kind of angry at the younger, inexperienced, how you could say, PA. And I was kind of there. And then I was like, just being naturally an empathetic person, I kind of wanted to like help where I could. And then the AD eventually came because I was assisting the AD, and they said, no, that's not your department. Let the producer deal with that, you know? So in that situation, you talk about how you've learned from that. And like, so what is the process in that situation? Do you like follow procedure and be like, this happened here? Do I alert, I don't know, producer? Or do I just let that situation dissolve? Or should I just give the director a moment? Like, because obviously, for me, I see that I think you did well in kind of, covering for the art department. But obviously, you can look at the other side and say, oh, you should have never challenged the director, you know? So what is your process in that type of situation?
So if you look at what happened to me and the reason I got fired and what I should have done better, is that what you're asking? Well, if that was to happen to me today with the experience I have now, I would hear the director and the art department have their issues, and I would stay out of it. I'd let them have their confrontation and whatever happens. And then I would hopefully once that's happened, the director's in a position where he can continue shooting. If he's not, we would have to bring in a producer to come and help solve the issue. But my role as the AD is to keep the show running, and it's also to do what's best for the movie. So as much as I'm the assistant director, it's not doing what's best for the director, it's doing what's best for the show. So sometimes the director will be wrong, definitely wrong. It's not for me to judge that. There's other people that have hired him that can judge that. He's hired by the producers and they're paying him. So it sometimes becomes a thing where they're going to sort it out themselves and then carry on, or if they can't, we're going to have to bring in a producer who can then mediate. But as soon as I lose the director as the person that I'm assisting on set, and he has lost trust in me as the person he can turn to get things done, then my job's worth it. So I need to maintain that relationship, whether it's good or bad, right or wrong. So you've got to kind of step away from trying to be right or trying to be the good guy or whatever.
Yeah.
It's more about getting the job done. And it might sound a little bit psychopathic in a way, but it's not if you make sure that you keep people's well-being on the forefront.
Yeah.
So if that were to happen, and let's say the director does get totally upset with the art department and he fires them, I may afterwards give them a call and go, hey guys, I totally get what happened there. I'm on your side. Let's see what we can do to fix the situation, and do it in a calmer environment off the set. But to do it the way I did on that day was wrong. It didn't work.
I think what that's really about is the lesser evil in pursuit of the greater good.
Correct.
So to speak.
Correct.
But I know there may be other questions, and we will take them. I promise you, we won't ignore you. But let's want to go a little bit back to some of the nuts and bolts about the schedule and the call sheet and things like that. If we could just talk a little bit more about the nuts and bolts
Yes.
of
Do you
the
want to talk
process,
about it,
and then
shall
we
I?
will address all your questions.
I've got questions for Dr. John Luke. But Dr. John Luke at this point, right?
Okay, well,
20 years worth of pursuit.
Should we just talk about paperwork quickly? So basically,
Paperwork, yeah.
So basically, in the AD department, when we set up a movie, we have to break down the script. We have to generate a thing called the shooting schedule, and from the shooting schedule, we then generate daily call sheets, which are then instructions to the entire cast and crew and everybody on the show as to what we're shooting on a daily basis, what time everything and everybody needs to be where and when, and what time we're planning to start shooting and what time we're planning to start wrap on that day. And those call sheets are built off the basis of the shooting schedule that we devise in prep. So essentially those are the bits of paperwork that we have, and we also, along with the call sheet on a daily basis, generate what we call sides. And the sides are the script pages of the scenes that we're shooting for that day, which are kind of included in a little booklet with the call sheet on top, so you can refer to everything that's happening on the day on the set, and you you've got it in your hand. So that's pretty much it. Yes, we do it. So the AD department breaks down the script, and the way that we do that is initially we'll read the script when we first start the job, and then we'll go through the script scene by scene and break down all the different elements that are in that scene that are specific to things that we need to check that departments are doing correctly. So there might be certain, and it's interesting because often scripts are badly written and certain things are added into scripts that are very specific, which the director, producers, and actors may totally not do because they don't want to. For example, they might say that a lead actress is wearing Levi jeans, and for whatever reason they decide that lead actress is never going to wear Levi jeans. Something like that in the script is a nonsensical, that doesn't matter. But then there are a bunch of other things in the script that are integral that we need to know. And that is, for example, which actors are in each scene, and we need to track that. And sometimes it's not that clear because it's not only the people that are speaking, but also the people that are hanging out with the other actors. And you need to define very clearly which actors are when and where. It can also be when we need stunt performers, what special effects are needed, so all the different departments things. We then send that out to the crew to get feedback, and often we'll get much more detailed lists back from different departments, specifically props. Props is amazing. They kind of list the hell out of every single thing that they've got to have, and they need to be that specific because if an actor needs something in their hand, they've got to have it. And like each actor, for example, will have a watch, a wallet, a set of sunglasses, or this, that, and the other, which are all things that are not in the script, but they've got to think about these things and have them there. And unless they're properly listed and checked, then they don't have that information and they're not ready with it. So we spend a lot of time generating that document, and we take information from all the different departments and add it into the breakdown sheets. And the reason that it comes to the AD department is that when we then change the schedule around, the days in which the different elements are needed are tracked. Because our program that we use is called Movie Magic, and it can hold all that information in it. So as we reschedule things, all the information and elements that are required for a scene move along with that. So obviously if there's a schedule change later or whatever else, then we know, oh shit, we're going to need this car, we're going to need this art department stuff, we're going to need X actors, we're going to need these animals, X, Y, and Z. All those things track easily along as we make those schedule changes. Yeah, that's pretty much.
Jean-Luc, talk to us about, I've got a question, how does the process of tech recce in that preparation and looking at it more AD department related stuff,
right.
What the ADs will need to know. So you walk into a room full of this, you know that you will need crowd to be seated up there, and how does that process look like when on the ground level as a first AD with the director in the space in foundation phases?
Okay, well, essentially, one of the first things that we start doing when we start our pre-production phase is we have a much smaller amount of crew around us, and they're normally the director, the art director or production designer, and the DOP if they have enough money to have them on early, and a few other, maybe the producer, and then myself. And we'll start doing what we call director scouts. So the location scouts would have been sent out to find locations, or the production designer may have gone out to different studios to find places to build sets, and those would then be presented to the director. And once he's seen stuff that he likes and wants to visit, we'll then build up a schedule of visiting those places. And when we initially go out there on a director scout, it's an opportunity for the director, the DOP, and the production designers to see if they can make this work. So it's a very kind of creative phase. They don't want to be rushed. They need to take their time, and they start figuring out how they can mold what they see on the location to work for the script. And sometimes that may mean that the script needs to be rewritten slightly to make it work for the location, and often that happens. And then things kind of start falling into place. So we'll do that for the entire movie. Once we've got all those locations locked down and we're happy with them, then we'll do what we call the technical scout. And when we do that is when we take the entire technical crew, all the kind of people that are not the production designers, so maybe his set dressers and other art department crew will take the picture vehicles people, will take special effects, all the people that have not seen the location yet, to go and see where we will be shooting and to explain to everybody what is needed. So it's stuff that we've kind of discussed over maybe months of figuring stuff out. We then have a chance to present to everybody and show this is what we need and this is how we're going to do it. And this is often the first time that any of the other ADs get to see it. So like the third AD or the second will see it for the first time. And once those other departments see what these locations entail, it then informs them as to all the different things that they will need to be able to shoot there.
Yeah.
So for example, within the AD department, we will look at it and go, okay, we're going to shoot in the street, we're going to lock the street down, we're going to change the direction of traffic, we're going to have an X amount of cars, and we're going to need X amount of extras. So now my second will then look at it and go, okay, I'm going to need 10 lock of PAs to be able to lock the road off properly. I'm going to need another 2 PAs to help with the running of the extras. I'm going to need another PA to help with running of the vehicles, and et cetera, et cetera. And that's just within my department. Each department will do the same for what they're doing and the logistics involved with what they're doing. And often afterwards we'll then have discussions, because there'll be overlaps between, I mean, lighting may need 3 cranes and stunts may need a crane as well. And there'll be a discussion as to whether they can both use the same cranes or whether they need their own independent cranes, because obviously things like cranes are expensive. So the producers will then try and get us to minimize the amount of expenditure.
I think having this being an assistant director workshop as well, the reason why you have to understand the elements that comes into these things, tech scout and all the different departments being in one space, is that what we learn in that moment in time is the discovery that because the space is this month, the different teams will bring along only what they need, the essentials, to put things in a specific direction. It's a hot set, so we can't have things there, or we'll have VT there, we'll have sound department station there. These are all the things now within your department as the AD department you start looking at. This is how you become vigilant and know this. And I can guarantee you that as many things are planned out, on the day of the shoot, you will bump heads with various personnels within those departments, even though this was information that was included or concluded in the foundation phase of tech recce's and all that and all that.
Well, hopefully not.
I mean,
the better your tech scout, the less
drama there will be, even though it's kind of inevitable being confined in a space with film crew and all that.
What I normally find when there's conflict is when certain departments don't communicate to their teams properly what is going on.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest culprits for that is camera, for example. So you'll have like your DOP, and he'll concentrate so heavily on lighting that he'll forget that he's actually got a whole camera department as well.
Right.
And they need places to put their cameras, build their cameras, park their trucks, and do all the things that they need to do. And it's only the really experienced DPs that are kind of more aware of the multitasking that is required, because they just think, oh, all these people come along with me and they do what I need. But they kind of forget about all the logistics involved with their department.
I think for me, John Luke, it would be very important, being it that we are at an academy, right, and interns are here, we're speaking to people that are just about to step into the spaces and experience these movie sets, 50 odd that you have been on and being part of. It's just understanding the realisticness of how, you know, it might sound like a joke making these references, but these are things that actually took place and had happened. And so many times that specifically in the AD department, people came and they've gone. And
it's a hard job, hey?
Yeah, I think they didn't give themselves enough time to really just understand what it is all about. So many times, and so I speak and am here to echo the foundation, the junior perspective of how life looks like and working under the John Lukes, right? And in preparation of reality, it's that you do have to face communicating with these various departments. And you do need to be, because the call sheet is designed within your department. You do need to understand it and learn it back and back. You need to have it in your mind before you sleep the day before a day of shoot. It is industry standard. It is what makes the Sivenkosis have attitude on set, because if you are speaking to any person who may be an HOD of any other department, you can tell that person, kind sir, what unites you and I right at this moment is this piece of document. On here, in constructing this, you had your input and the timings provided to my HOD. This is what unites us right at this moment, because yet again it goes back to how do you be proactive in your response, because so many times there's so many things moving and so many elements affecting the day's work. Maybe pressure from that HOD that's a gaffer, or camera DOP has pressure on his level, but not understanding that each and every person here under one umbrella combines and consists of this one thing that makes the oiled machine work for the greater purpose of one shot. So many times as an AD, talking things block-offs, you'll get guys that are, so you get a technical flow. I want us to actually talk about that, before we go for a take moment for you. This is you, John-Luc. Before we go for a take. Now we know, props know what they need to have for the actor. We have the actors in the vicinity, in their green room, and we're about to go for a take. Let's design that world for the upcoming film.
Have we done a rehearsal yet?
We have not. It's foundation phase.
Okay.
Let's say we're at base camp. We want to go back to base camp. Let's start to first point of contact.
Okay, let's talk about it. Let's talk about a day. So at the beginning of a day, the first place to open up on the film set is the base camp. And the reason that opens up first is because the actors take forever in makeup. And it's just the way it is. So the actors will arrive at base camp. The base camp will be set up and ready. That's where the catering is for breakfast. And that's where the actors get dressed and they get makeup and they get ready with all the stuff that needs to happen. The second AD, if we're running a British system, will be at base camp, and they'll have their base camp assistants there to receive the cast, and they run them through makeup. They also will ensure that all the paperwork for the day is ready, and that paperwork is getting handed to all the different departments that need it as they arrive. Pretty much all the crew will come to base camp, have breakfast, get their sides, and get ready for the day from base, and then head off to set. Their trucks may be parked there, and they may drive their trucks from there to the holding area on set or whatever's happening there. So as a rule, everybody pretty much comes to base camp. Sometimes not. Some people don't want to have breakfast and they just go straight to set. That's their business. So then from base camp, we then have set. And set has what we call a technical base. So that's where all the trucks that are technical park close to the set. So it's lighting trucks, scripts trucks, camera trucks, props trucks, all the other bits and pieces that need to be on set that are in trucks or vans are parked in this area, and this area normally has a power supply and also normally has some kind of craft in it as well. So that's a place for all the crew to go to catch a breath, have a cup of coffee, and get more gear or bring gear back or keep things neat and tidy. And then from there, we go to set itself, and set is where the actual shooting takes place. Within set, what I like to do, and we spoke about the donuts, is divide the setup into what I call donuts. So the first donut, the center of the donut, is the area between the cameras, the actor, and whatever's behind the actor. That's the interior part of the first donut. And that is the area that I have to concentrate on with my second, and whatever other thirds are specifically required to run that. That's what their concentration is on, is making sure that that space is, how best to put it, it's kind of fostered and made into a place that's under our control, that the director and everybody else can be creative in. And it's not something that the public's walking through or that cars are driving through or that it's under our control as a place to shoot. Surrounding that, the first donut is all the support stuff that we need to make that happen. So we'll have standby makeup, standby props, standby art department, standby set dressing, standby costume, our sound guys, all the other, and lighting and everything else that brings things into that middle donut to make sure that the set works well is in that second around area. And that area also needs to be manned by ADs because that's where the communication needs to be fantastic. Everybody needs to understand what we're doing, what's coming next, what we're getting ready for, and when things need to be on standby so we can just keep shooting and not be waiting for stuff. So that's also where things get staged, things get put on standby so that they can get brought in front of the cameras quickly and we can keep shooting efficiently. And then around that is kind of what I call the unit production protection zone. So basically, production and unit and locations have hired the space for us. They have security in place so that the space is under our control. And they also have security there so that we can actually work efficiently without worrying about baggies coming in and stealing cell phones or whatever else is going on. We can concentrate on the work at hand, and the space is good for us. And I mean, that can, I see some smiles about the baggies thing, but that can range to many different, depending on where you're shooting, it can range to many different things. It could be, I don't know, if we're shooting out in a jungle, it could be that we need to have
Animal protection.
yeah, we've had snake wranglers making sure that there's no snakes coming to us into our area. It can be maybe that we're out on dunes in the middle of the desert, and that means that we've got these 4x4 vehicles on standby to take us in and out so that we are safely kind of looked after in the space. It all depends where you are. I mean, I've also shot in certain kind of dangerous areas. I'm talking about Hillbrow now and things like that, where we've had certain unsavory people doing our security and making sure that we are safe in terms of that. And let's not talk about all the... I mean, there's times when there's been gunshots and things like that because we're trying to shoot in difficult places, but it happens. And it's like you've got to have that stuff in place, otherwise you can't do your job. And then the donut around that is base camp, because base camp is now looking after all the things that need to come next, which actors are coming next, and making sure that the communication between all the departments is happening. And also base camp looks ahead at the next day and makes sure that the next day's requirements are all being set up and looked after, generating the next day's call sheet, making calls to all the different departments to make sure that they're aware of what's coming tomorrow, what's needed tomorrow, and what time certain things are going to be required on the set for tomorrow. So they're getting that all ready.
Yeah.
And then around all of that is the biggest donut of all, and that is the production company itself that's making the movie. And they kind of have the production office, but they also have all the support that puts all of this into place. They have the financial ability to hire and fire people, but they also give us all the things that we need to run the show, the trucks, the trailers, all that other stuff that's required. Unless all those donuts and all those little layers are working well together, the whole thing can fall apart. So it's kind of a support structure. I like to see it in that way. That's kind of a
I love the donut effect. You know I love it. When I met you a few years ago, it's something I took with me, and you were quite surprised in me mentioning that in 2020.
Yeah, I was, yeah.
That I still remember it. Because something that came out of the understanding of the donut effect is that wherever you are in your journey as an AD of that donut effect, let's say your positioning is in the tech base, it's in the outskirts, it's in the rounder part of the third layer of
yeah, you still got a very specific job to do there.
You still have a specific job to do that communicates with what's inside, and everyone that's inside knows that you are positioned within the outside, and vice versa.
Yeah.
But so what
you're doing sound lock off, you're doing
whatever it is you're doing in that world. One thing that really helped me get quite ahead of the game, Jean-Luc, was that understanding where I'm standing, even if it's in the third layer of the donut, I still have the responsibility throughout this business of the day to be attentive and know exactly what is happening with inside. Because while you are within the outskirts of it all, you might actually have a producer at the lock-off, someone who's coming from the further outskirts, the production office, who has not been on the film set for the day or for the duration and wants to know where we're at in terms of the call sheet and what we were meant to shoot that particular day, right? And so you standing there, you're a tower of information. You need to allow yourself and be attentive enough and have that duty yourself. No one's actually going to ever train you this, to be quite frank. No one trains you this until you actually realize that I am fully connected with the AD department, even if though I feel as exterior. Something that really frustrated me within my journey was that I felt, okay, I got the training that I needed to become this filmmaker that I am in this world, but now I'm busy in the outskirts. I'm not seeing what's happening inside.
Yeah, I'm yelling at people, quiet please, and I'm guarding a pathway.
And you're guarding a pathway, you're standing on your doorway, or that's all you're doing. People hate your voice by now. It's really what I'm here to share and echo the reason why I'm asking John to actually give those detailed information that have helped myself in the process of growing within the AD department, is so that you know your due diligence, even though you are in the far outskirts. There's nothing more terrifying than a AD that's not attentive, that's not within the rhythm of
it becomes that whole risk of misinformation, right?
Risk of miscommunication, because wherever you are, as long as you are within the AD department, you will get asked a question. And that question, you need to have it. If you don't know the answer at that moment in time, there's an art that you also will learn within your journey of notifying the person asking you, no matter who it is, whether it is the hierarchy, from the production itself, or whoever it is in the film set, because there might be a reason. There's always a reason someone's coming to you as an AD, a person who only owns a radio. The only piece of equipment you have on you is yourself and this earpiece. You're the only person who have a sense of understanding what we are moving on to next, why things are moving faster, why we're chasing, or why is it calmer, why is it... There's always a reason, or knowing information that has to do with tomorrow, next week. That is what you are as an assistant director. That's information that it comes to you firsthand because you are an assistant director, no matter which ranking that is within the AD department. And so I want to encourage you with the donut effect, understand it, learn it, and wherever you are within that donut effect, be attentive to yourself, show up for yourself in that sense, because I have built and have had the luxury to speak to some executive producers in the long form service international productions that did have no business to talk to a kid like me, to even echo anything, utter anything with a kid like me in the outskirts. But I can tell you it was because of that practice, and the constant practice allows you to then have a well-managed articulation of why it is you have to provide information. The art of it is that find the accurate information. You are the middle person who will go find the information. Do not say what you are not sure about. Something I'm also still learning is assumptions, taking away assumptions. Nothing is to be, don't assume that you have all the information, because things are changing by the minute. And so the relation between you, whether you are the PA to the first AD, is crucial. And it is so crucial because I think by navigating myself through understanding the donut effect, I then built a very strong relationship with first ADs. That's something that really took place in my life, because then I started getting jobs via first ADs. That meant that even if you are far and you don't get to see your first AD for the 12 hours of the day because you're in the outskirts, but the person can hear you. They know you are effective. They know very well about you. A lot of the times within this process of growing within the AD department, you are heard more than you are seen. And that's a power you have to take charge of and understand when you are going to be in the communication department. You understand? So whether it's a person from the unit department wanting to know where to place the toilets, it's a very crucial question, because there'll come a time when we're shooting and that toilet is in frame. It's your responsibility to find the answer and make sure the answer is accurate. The beauty of ADing for me has been that, Jean-Luc, and I hope you can touch on how it affected you as well in your life. You become such a detailed communicator after some time of doing this, and you actually
My wife hates it.
you utilize it in your personal life. So I think it is generally a very powerful skill to have. And maybe you can touch base on how, because I've seen first ADs come on, we have AD dinners or AD team building, and then the AD, our first AD, will be the AD at the restaurant. Are you one of those guys, Jean-Luc?
I try not to be. It's often you have to be. I don't know. That you kind of become...
This needs to be there.
Yeah. Get impatient.
Could I just ask another question? Both of you talked about when you came on board that you were creative personalities and that you envisioned perhaps directing, producing your own content. And then you got into an incredibly disciplined, siloistic, line function driven, technical position requiring amazing expertise in that respect, but yet you're exposed to everything that somebody who ultimately wants to produce and direct is exposed to, which is a unique position. And I can tell you now, if I think to people who've come through the South African Film Academy, most of the people who've come through the AD department who've gone on to become recognized directors. Darren Joshua was one, another one was Tebogo Mkabela, people like that. They all went right through this thing that you've done. So it's a unique opportunity and a unique role to expose yourself to and to pay your dues in. If you want to stay as an AD, it's unique in itself and it's a brilliant position to be in. But if you want to go on to become an independent producer and director, it's also an absolutely awesome position. So there's a wonderful blend, I think, between indie, indie and you know, big movie.
I mean, from my point of view, I've always wanted to make movies. It's something since I was a teenager. I was just like obsessed with wanting to, and I didn't really understand what it was back then. And the more I got into it, the more I just fell in love with the whole process and the fact that you can collaborate with people and do this creative thing and get paid. The fact that we even get paid for this is just amazing. I love it. For me personally, I originally hoped that going the AD route would get me towards directing. I've later kind of discovered along the journey that there's probably better ways to get there, and that's maybe through cinematography or through editing or through writing. But having said that, with the experience I've had of being an AD, I would say that it's actually a really good way to get towards directing, because you get much more of a holistic picture of what it is. And I still hope one day that I will be able to direct something. It would be great. When I'm not working, I do find myself writing. I'm busy developing a script right now and getting it to some producers, and we're going to see what we can do with it. So creatively, I'm still very much involved. And I think to be a good AD, if you're not creatively aware, you're not going to be a great AD, because you need to always keep in mind that we're trying to entertain people, we're trying to make something really fun, and sometimes we do need to waste time, and I'm calling it waste time, but we need to spend time playing and figuring out and inventing and creating something new and different. And if you just like scientific and systematic about it, this works and that doesn't work, then you're never going to get any of those aha moments to happen. So as an AD, I think there needs to be a certain excitement to be trying out creative stuff. And for me, that's one of the cool things about ADing, is I get to do that with a lot of different creative people and see them fail and see them succeed, and take that and put that in my memory bank of cool things you can do as a director or cool things you can do as a filmmaker, because some of the things that we do are amazing and other things are really stupid.
I mean, yeah, John, look, to answer for me, I just recently worked with a director that is from a first AD background. And I think absolutely. There's a bit of difficulty, however, because you are dealing with someone who has the detail to it, who's been doing it from the first AD.
Yeah, I think just to interject quickly, I think the one risk for an AD working with a director who's been an AD is that you would really hope that that director could then just let go of the ADing and let the other people do it.
Yes.
Because if they don't, they're going to keep falling back on what they know, which is ADing. And if they do that, it can really be kind of two people trying to drive the car at the same time, which is never
never good at all. It's quite a accident, actually.
Yeah.
So for me, absolutely. I came out of film school wanting to direct, and in between freelancing, I've been actually able to do a kind of passion project with some of names that I've met on film sets, some in the camera departments, collaborations that are phenomenal. I think understanding that what they do and putting it together in an indie format, and I know Seat and everyone kind of get a sense of what I've been trying to push. And I mean, there's still time for greatness as well. So some wise words from Sir powerful greatness. Ridley Scott only made his very first, Sir Ridley Scott rather, made his first film when he was 40 years old. Throughout his career path as a visual motion picture excellence genius, he's been producing commercial products. And so I think one of the things that's something that I can do now with the excess of things I have are shooting commercial products, like with music videos or whatever it is I can get my hands on to create my creative juices on. It's also something I learned from you. I think there was a time you showed me some photography pieces that you were
I mean, I'm always trying to do stuff.
Exactly.
If I'm not working, I'm trying to do something.
Exactly. And so I think I also learned through, it's only a few handful I do want to say, because some people have made a stamp that they're happy with being within the AD department and they don't want anything else. This is what they do. But then
it's glued to their heads.
Exactly. But then you do have the creative ones who understand that in order for you to actually really enjoy some of the work that we do is really to have that creative mind, because sometimes it's really boring. You know, there's nothing to entertain you, but if you are intertwined and linked to the script and you have the passion to what you're here to do, it kind of helps you navigate the day and the shoot itself.
Well, when I was still thirding, I worked for a Russian AD, and he took me aside one day and he said, "Jean-Luc, whatever you do in this department, make sure you do something creative, because this will kill you otherwise." And I said, "Okay, what do you do?" And he said, "I play the violin." So it was just like, you need to do something to foster that creative side of being human. And
because you're always directing people.
Well, that's the thing. As often as being the AD, you're helping other people realize their dreams. And that can be a kind of, I don't know, it can start feeling empty after a while, especially if you feel like they're doing it wrong. But you still need to be professional, and you still need to be enthusiastic, and you still need to do your job with vigor.
There's power, although there's power in that, because I think one of my really interesting moments as well as a third was background placement, and just identifying that, okay, cool, they're going to have a camera there and putting this action there, and hearing I think it was little two kids rushing in, the actors coming in, and it was such a beautiful timing piece of sequence that I had the opportunity to create with extras, and a world-known Hollywood director was sharing at this moment happening in front of the lead actors. I love that action, absolutely, you know. It became a whole piece that evolved around something I had just created at a moment in time. Remember, your extras don't have a script. These are people they don't know what's happening. They're probably the most disorientated bunch of people that you actually can deal with. Some of them, it's the same faces. I see some of them are the same faces, same people, different movies, but it is such an overwhelming environment. It's filled with so many people and personalities in one space for 12 to 14, 16, 18 hours a day. We don't know, Charlie. We don't know anymore. We just know about our call times. We don't know when we leave, all right? That's also the industry and the business that we are in. So there is the beauty in being an AD and being able to grow some creative juices while pursuing that. Whether it's in the moment of being on set or what you would like to do on your spare time when you are not on the job.
That's quite an interesting point, that one. And I just wanted to ask you now, we all started out with your two worst times, but can you share with us perhaps the most exciting, elevated, privileged moment you've ever experienced on a set? I mean, that one that you talked about was quite beautiful, because it was so small and kind of incidental and seemingly trivial, and yet it was just like a glowing moment for you. But does anything spring to mind in your careers where you just came away feeling, whoa, this is really worth it? You know, everything I've done and everything I've put in makes this worthwhile.
So most of the time we work with, if you're based in Cape Town, you do a lot of international pieces. And I think for my own journey, there's been a lot of moments of, oh wow, I'm working with this person, as I mentioned earlier on. But back home where I'm from, no one really knows much of the international actors. They will watch movies, so you know what I'm talking about. Our gogos don't know Travis Fimmel, who plays lead in Vikings, but they will know a Kino Matoso from Generation. So I had a situation like that when I thought I was fine until I was not fine. just the moment of realizing that I'm interacting and having to tell an actor I grew up watching on my television screen, Generation, each and every night, and I'm here in front of him having to explain to them, this is what we're moving on to. You know, we're now going to shoot coverage on you doing this and this. And there's just this detailed impact. I think I ran away that moment in time just when it started sinking in, and went to lock myself up in a cubicle and cried my lungs to death, because I was like, this is a beautiful moment. Here I am, kid from Krebs, who was having a conversation with this person, and oh my gosh, he actually believes in what I'm saying. Like, he's attentively taking in what I'm saying, and he does not, little does he know that what I'm saying comes from my little earpiece from the first AD. But I made it my own, you know what I mean? I made it my own. I think those are the powerful, exciting moments, outside it being the creative whatnot, the fun perspective of it is just being in the rooms and realizing that these actors that we are watching, the work that comes into it and the support that we as the ADs are there to provide. It's actually just such a zoom in lens to the world of these things and how it comes about. That's also where you learn actually the different acting techniques. If you didn't get that bit in film school, if you didn't understand it as much, this is where you also get the privilege of learning about it, working along with actors or being the supervision for acting.
Method is a pain in the ass.
Method acting, there's so many things. There's so many things you will pick up. When the first time I actually learned about how being at base camp in the morning, they rock up, they're normal human beings, and then they go into the makeup truck, then you whoa, doing with someone else. Maybe the actor's playing a violent scene that day. These are all the kind of moments that has fascinated me in the whole of this journey of being an AD. It's just being interior. You are there. You are the human contact to this person.
Yeah.
That's the fascinating part. Yeah.
I hate this question, Seton, and the reason I hate it is once you get me started, we're going to have to start taking out beers and having braais, and it's going to take a long time. Because there's a litany of amazing things that I've experienced in my career, and it ranges from shooting in places that normal people can never go to. I've been blessed to shoot in places in Namibia called the Spaga Beach, where you just can't go there, and they got special permits for us to get in there with helicopters and do things, and we brought a crew of 80 people right into the middle of the desert. It took 3 days to get our equipment in there, and it was just an amazing nature experience that I'll never have again, and I've never had since, and I don't think many people will ever experience. So things like that have been astounding. There's been other moments where I've pinched myself, where like we were up on the mountains in New Zealand shooting 10,000 BC, and it had been snowing and it was overcast and it had been miserable and cold for days and days and days. And then the one evening we had our second unit out shooting the mammoth hunters on horseback, and they were on this escarpment close to the base camp, and suddenly all the clouds just went away. And I had this view of all these snow-capped mountain peaks and this row of dark black horses and this helicopter flying around them, and the sunset, and it was just magic. And I was like, never again will I experience that. But that's, you know, it's one of those moments in time. And then also, I mean, like talking about actors and stuff, I mean, I can remember as a second AD dealing with Meg Ryan and being totally petrified of talking to her, but having to phone her every night and give her the call time. And I think I probably had a bit of a crush on her, and I was just like,
there was a lot going on, John.
Yeah, it was hard. Those phone calls, I'll never forget those phone calls. It was just, but I look back so fondly on them now, but at the time I was like freaked out and fearful. It was hard.
They say don't look at actors, don't look
them in the eye.
Don't look into their soul.
Meanwhile, she was very sweet and very easy, but I was stammering trying to give her a call time.
You've touched on the elephant in the room there, and the two things I just want to touch on, and then I think we should start dealing with some of the many, many questions we're going to receive. And that is working with marquee names. You know, it must really speak to how the overall culture and the feel of a production. I mean, just for example, if you're working with Idris Elba, for example, I won't talk about other people, but they're just some marquee names, some really, really hot leads that are just the nicest, most extraordinarily easy easygoing person.
But also the opposite
and
as
others
well.
who are really hard, and that speaks so much to how your set's going to operate.
Yes.
But attitude is altitude. Can we just touch on that, perhaps, in both in terms of your whole group and also obviously yourself and how one addresses the issue of attitude on set?
Yeah.
And then let's go to the floor and perhaps to Hannah's question.
I mean, to be honest, it's a very tricky thing, and it's something I feel as I'm maturing as an AD that you get a sense that you initially, when you first meet the star actors, that's your opportunity to start setting a tone. And most star actors are extremely hardworking and very professional, but the attitude in which they do that can often depend on the kind of atmosphere that you create. And often first contact is where they kind of suss out how that works. And sometimes if your director's less experienced and more introverted, that can become a bad thing, because then the star feels like they have to fill the gap, so to speak. And it can sometimes steer the whole show in a certain direction because of their idea of how things should be. And that can sometimes create a little bit of conflict, and it can make the work environment a little bit difficult. Even more so, yeah. Yeah. I mean, working with Tom, he runs the set in every sense of the word. His kind of charisma and his work ethic is the order of the day, and that's how things run on that set. And the director is there to tell him, you look bitching, and then he'll come back and have a look and see how bitching he looked. Play back.
Often diesel.
And yeah, but I mean, that's that kind of, but that's also, it's that kind of a show, and everybody knows that that's what it's going to be. But sometimes you're doing other shows where you're trying something new, and you've got maybe stars that also are on the rise, or they're still kind of finding their feet, and there can be a lot of trepidation around that, because they are investing a lot of time and effort now into a show, and it's like they're always going to be, from the get-go, they're worried, did they make the right choice? Did they choose the right show? They've given other shows to do, are these the right people? So there's a lot of questions going on in the back of their mind, and you've got to be sensitive to that, and kind of give them a space where they feel like it's all going to be good. Yeah, I'm not going to name drop because...
I think just to echo on that, Jean-Luc, I've come to learn that ADing is an act on its own.
In a way, it is, yeah.
It's an act on its own, and you adjust to, you mirror what you get. In understanding, if you're going to be in the same room with the great likes of, if you were to name drop, you know, if you are in that same space, I think there's great power in you being in that space at that moment in time. So it's up to you to really just play the art of being an artist yourself in that moment in time. I don't think Jean-Luc goes and run a floor as Jean-Luc at home. You know, I don't know if this
is different. Yeah, it is different.
So it's an art on its own that has, it's similar to the actors.
If I was like I am on set at home, my wife would divorce me.
So it's an act on its own, and I think that's
no, it is. But also what's interesting is, I think, I mean, like I'm thinking back now to something I can talk about more, which is like, let's say going back to 10,000 BC. That was a Roland Emmerich movie. Big director. We had our first AD was from the UK. The key second was from the UK. I was the AD for the second unit. We also had another South African AD called Andre, who was also for the second unit. We had an AD team of 17 people, full time. That's a really big AD department. The show was a $200 million budget. And what Roland was very concerned about was that it was going to become this big machine, and he didn't want it to be that. He wanted the atmosphere to be like it was a family. So, and he was very clear about that, and he kept telling us ADs that he wants to make sure it feels like a family. And he specifically cast nobody that was famous on the show, because he didn't want any prima donnas, he didn't want anybody that was like holding up the show. He wanted everybody to be ready and there and present to shoot. So the director was very like aware of how that kind of the atmosphere can make the work environment difficult or easy. And I think because he instilled that in everybody, there was like a very friendly, family-like feeling on the set, even though there were 400-500 people shooting at any given time. It was massive. There was a lot of like logistics to deal with, and a lot of like kind of hierarchical stuff, and a lot of departments that had to be kind of memoed and given the information in a very specific way. It was still, I don't know if it's something as an AD that you just kind of need to be aware of.
And each show will have a different texture to it. That
Yeah,
requires-
and then you get other shows. I mean, like we did a Steven Seagal movie once, and the guy is just, no, I mean, he's a nightmare. It's like, I don't know how he still works. He's like, when it comes to the Me
Steven
Too movement,
Seagal.
if he had come now, with the rules of you know, just how to be gentlemanly to each other and how to be kind to one another, it's like next level, unbelievable kind of toxic environment that you just don't want to be in. I mean, I'm glad I did it because I know how bad it can get, but it was
Sometimes that's all you can take out of it. That's the best you can get. You learn something.
oh yeah, sometimes you need to know what doesn't work.
Yeah.
It doesn't. And I think what I'm trying to get at is the AD has a lot to do with the tone of the way that the set is run.
Yes.
And you can all just be business and efficiency and everything, but then it gets very cold, clinical, and rushed, and everybody's stressed, and then it's like, well, what's this comedy movie going to be like? You know? Yeah.
Well said, John.
Right.
Question back.
Let's lots and lots of questions. Here we go.
Hi there,
Hi.
my name is Narelle. I wanted to ask, being ADs and especially first ADs when you're, running a hot set and it's so busy and, you're prepping to shoot like a very emotional scene, and then you have a method actor.
A what?
A method actor.
Method actor, yeah.
Yes, on set, and they really throw themselves into the deep ends emotionally. And how do you handle that? Do you give them time after they, finish their performance to like cool down and get back to where they are, or how have you handled that in the past?
Look, it depends very much on actor to actor, and it's an interesting question.
I can help out in this one. So
I'm going to think
Cast-
about a better answer.
cast has cast support. So all these things we've mentioned, you've got a cast liaison, the cast PA, you've got ADs, the thirds, everyone that's in the AD department understands the value of an actor, right? So when we get to the film set, the morning, we already know what kind of things we'll shoot. We know when it's a closed set, how to behave. Again, I think it really goes back to what John Luc has been saying about...
we'd create the environment for that to
environment,
happen because
yes.
we would know it would be coming.
Yes.
Where it becomes tricky is that if the director is not happy with the performance and they want to get more or different things out of it, and for that actor it can be extremely exhausting because they're putting a lot of emotional energy into what they're doing. So sometimes that can be a discussion with the director afterwards about, or after a take, about how many takes do you want to do here, where do you want to take this, because it can literally exhaust the actor. There have been days where the day has failed because of that, and that's ended up being discussions with producers talking to the actor about their method. Does that make sense?
Makes total sense. Thank you.
So basically the producers turn to the actor and go, look, we appreciate what you're doing here, we understand the process that you're going through, but in order for us to make this movie, you don't have 200 days to shoot it. You've got this many days, so you've got to kind of rein it in. But that's a discussion they need to have.
Basically, everyone's doing a job. Everyone's got a job.
That's ultimately what everybody does, yes. And look, some actors can be very difficult about it, be very adamant about their process. But having said that, they know at the end of the day, if they want to be on the screen, they've got to perform. If they're not giving what is needed and they're not there, they can be replaced. Nobody wants to do that.
operations manager at the SA Film Academy. Just to give you guys an interesting fact, between 50 to 60% of all applicants that we receive in January want to be directors, right? So for me, whenever I speak to a trainee or an intern that wants to pursue this career path, I sort of ask them a few questions, like number one, are you currently reading a book? You know what I mean? Like I try and listen to how effective of a communicator they are, because I've made the assumption that as a director, right, your job is to paint the same picture in 17 people's minds, right? So your arsenal of communication, are you constantly improving that? Because like, is it that the person didn't understand your brief, or is it that you're not making your vision clear? So am I correct in assuming that 100%. You guys probably read, take in information? Like how important is that?
Extremely important. It's
Same thing as reading the scripts.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think as much as ADs are loud and ADs are telling everybody what's happening and everything else, I find, especially for myself in prep, I tend to be quite introverted, and I spend the majority of my time listening. Because everybody's got a lot to say. It's all the different creative people have a lot to say, and a lot of creative people struggle to communicate verbally effectively. So as an AD, I often find I need to learn the language of that person. I don't know if that makes sense. To try and explain that better, DOPs speak a certain way because they're in the world of lights, camera, their technical stuff, and they talk about those things in a specific way. So you need to understand the jargon, you need to understand what they're getting at. You need to understand the little quirks and stuff that annoy them and the things like that to really get to the nitty-gritty of what they're trying to do. The same with art department, the same with sound, the same with VFX, and all these different people within those departments may have slightly different ways of communicating that you've really got to get under their skin. And I think that's one of the amazing things about being South African, is because we're exposed to so many different cultures, so many different languages, and so many different points of view. We have brains that are already kind of set to be open to new ideas and new ways of thinking and new ways of approaching things and new ways of doing things. And I think for an AD, that is a huge benefit to you, because then you can take all that information and help interpret it and help re-communicate it so that everybody understands. And I will often take things that certain people have said and then sit in a meeting and say, this is what we want to do, and then look to them to make sure that they are agreeing with me, that I am saying what they're wanting to say in a way that everybody understands, but they still feel like they're being properly represented. So yeah, a lot of it is to do with being highly attentive and listening and reading and kind of just absorbing.
I think my take on Cindy's approach is, in any of all that we're doing here as creators, is building story worlds. If you have a pitch deck, whatever it is you're submitting, you have to demonstrate and put together a story world. And so whether it being the AD perspective is a close access to understanding the story world, because you will then have access to changes on storyboards and all this information that is always just, you know, transferred amongst the different departments, as John Lucas mentioned. But the reading perspective, us allowing ourselves to read, you know, read vast different genres of things, help us describe in our heads the story world of visualizing what this could be. Some of the greatest movies come from novels and inspired by the text that's written. Because then as a visual mind, as a motion picture maker, your world, you are then to take that you're reading from this book and create it into a story world within motion picture. And you need to allow that to constantly happen, especially linking it back to those of us who goes into the industry wanting to become directors, right? And so even as if you are to walk into the AD department, you've got the access, information at your access. this is what you can utilize to understand the story world. It will help, it has helped me, I think, with the desire of the type of movies and textures of stories I would like to share in this world, to understand what my story world looks like, and being able to then relate that to 17 HOD heads who are going to execute this across different departments. I hope that answers the link of reading books as a filmmaker and why that's crucial. You're probably not going to read as much books in a year as an AD, especially if life is normal back when we do 2 weeks off and then you jump onto the next job and next job and job. But fortunately, we live in a time where we've got audio books, we've got podcasts, educate yourself, have, you know, I think it's very important that your point, actually. Some of the greatest experience I've had with actors, execs, were on set, were conversations with people that are sometimes far beyond the story we're here to make. It's just worldwide, worldview conversations. I think just standing next to someone and grabbing a coffee or making a coffee, handing them a coffee, and then you end up talking about the latest, whatever is happening in the world, and you having a really good viewpoint of that, including what Jean-Luc has mentioned, that as a South African, you stand with a bonus, you already come with benefits built in because of the fact that you already have multiple tribes, languages, all that stuff, all of the different things that we know that we have as South Africans, because we have that, it puts us in the top of the game already. Yeah, just to conclude, that works.
There was another question about directing, everybody wanting to direct, and I think that's a very interesting phenomenon, and it's something that's always been there. And the one thing I say to a lot of those people that have no experience of what directing is do you realize that your job is 90% answering questions? And do you like doing it? Because that's 90% of what's going to happen, is you're going to be asked a million questions.
How can I
You've got to have an opinion, you've got to give an answer.
Welcome to F&B. How can I help?
And then you get a bunch of directors that don't want to answer the questions now, and everybody hates them because they can't get on with their jobs.
So as an AD, sometimes the question is not so much for you, but you have the access to the
director. They're often asking me the questions that I've got to then pass on to the director and get answers from, because they're not getting the answers they need from the director. So then it becomes like, okay, we need to know the answer to this, we need to know the answer to that, because we can't start building the set until we know what about this and about that. It's like there's a million questions, always.
Good morning. So my name is Nezi, and I have 2 questions. You can split them up, I don't mind. So the first is, within being an assistant director, when you do work within different countries, and now you're working with people that are also in the AD department, do you feel like there is one understanding of what the job entails, or are you always kind of learning and adjusting according to what they may have learned in their own country, or is it like one global understanding? And then the second question is, when you become directors, as you said you wanted to direct in the future, what kind of first AD would you want to work with?
Right, beautiful. Stunning.
You want to answer first, or should I?
I mean, go ahead, sir. Answering the perspective of working with internationals, and how is there one standard, one formula format of AD?
So the short answer is no, there isn't a standard. And what's interesting is here in South Africa, we tend to adhere to a hybrid between the American and British system. The American and British systems are very similar. The one large difference is that in the American system, they have a position which they call the key second AD. The key second AD is not the person doing the call sheets, whereas in South Africa and in the UK system, the key second does the call sheets. And in the American system, the key second kind of is the right-hand man to the first AD. He'll help on set quite a lot, but then he'll also go and set up the next day and then inform the second what needs to be in the call sheet, and then he'll run that through different departments. So there's a slight difference there. However, when it comes to Europe, things get quite funky. So in the Dutch system, the schedule does not get done by the ADs, it gets done by the production manager, usually. In the German system, the ADs are similar, but at the same time, the first AD is more an assistant to the director than an assistant director like we know it. But at the same time, he does run the floor, but there isn't the same amount of kind of responsibility to adhering to a schedule. So it's a bit weird. The French system is also slightly odd, and there's certain things where like the French first AD is responsible for checking that all the props required for the day are on set and things like that. And they tend to be more an atmosphere and fun kind of person that kind of is the voice on set, but there's a lot of support from production and from location, strangely, to make the day work. So it does change depending on where you are, and sometimes depending on who you're working with, you have to kind of hybridize the AD system that you're working to fit within that. And I think that's the other blessing we have here in South Africa. Is a lot of international features that get made here are made by different production companies that come from different parts of the world. So predominantly our bigger shows are British or American, but we do get to work with the Dutch and the Germans and the French, and that's all about it. There probably will be some others as well. That.
And then as a director, what type of first AD are we looking for? I think what would make an effective first AD is far beyond just being really good at putting together a breakdown and a schedule that works for the logistics perspective of it, but highlighting on terms of things we spoke about here today, the qualities of being able to provide a sense of atmosphere. The person will take it upon themselves, other than being really great at the paperwork and what comes with first ADing, but will put their personality into the job and will put parts of them into the space, because they know that those difficult times are coming where makeup and all these people, it's difficult to work with because of the type of, either work environments, the long drives, all that we've kind of like spoken about. I think for me, it is the energy. As a director, I would want someone who is good at doing it, the due diligence of the actual execution of firsting a production, but also someone who is linear enough and in touch with their personal self and extremely passionate about the bigger scope of this machine called this extreme sport of filmmaking.
For me, it's a very interesting question, because I've dealt with different directors that have different expectations of their first day. Yeah. And what was interesting to me is like some of the directors that I really respected as great directors needed their whole ship steered by the AD far more than I expected. And then I've dealt with other directors who like to really run and lead from the front, and they expect their AD to be their right-hand man who can get stuff done that they can't physically do with what they have on hand. So they're the person who gets what they need in front of them so they can direct it. So I think it very much varies and depends on the type of director that you are as to what kind of AD you need.
Right.
But your question was what kind of AD I would want if I was directing, and the answer to that is I try to be the best AD I can for what I think a director needs. So hopefully it would be someone like me.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
I love that, 100%.
Yeah.
You want a you.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you want a you?
Well, otherwise, what am I doing?
Exactly.
I'm doing all my directors a disservice.
Exactly.
I don't think I'm doing a good job.
And see here,